Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butz, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Square. If you run a restaurant or business, Square has the tools to help you stay connected to your customers, shift your business, and navigate this uniquely challenging time. Learn more at square.com/go/snacky.
HRN is offering complimentary business memberships to 50 Black, Indigenous, people of color-owned food businesses this summer. The deadline to apply is July 31st. Each business membership, a $500 value, is an advertising opportunity that will allow businesses disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 to connect with HRN's listening community and promote their work. To apply and review the terms and conditions, go to heritageradionetwork.org/BIZ.
Hello, and welcome to Snacky Tunes. I am one half your host, Greg Bresnitz. In our ongoing coverage of the coronavirus, we are looking at restaurants that are beginning the difficult process of reopening. In this episode, we're transported to Tulum, and taking us there is James Gardner, CEO and founder of GRUPO Gitano. He opened Gitano Tulum, a mezcal bar and kitchen, in 2013, and has since expanded with Gitano Garden of Love, a seasonal restaurant and bar in New York City, and Gitano Miami, a restaurant, bar, and rooftop jungle. He discusses the steps they are taking to reopen in Tulum amid the pandemic and how this time can be seen as a creative opportunity. We are then joined by the musical director Leo Leonsky and Håbe, Gitano Tulum's house band, who gives us a live musical performance. Leo discusses the audio identity of Gitano and dives deep into the musical evolution of Tulum. Håbe, who is an international collective of musicians based in Tulum, shares with us their blend of Middle Eastern rhythms and sounds with live looping and electronic music. We are really, really excited about the episode today because it shows that there's a possibility of reopening some restaurants in the world, which gives us great hope. So sit back, relax, and here's another episode of Snacking Tunes on Heritage Radio Network.
We talk about food, we talk about music, with musical dudes, finger on the pulse, Snacky Tunes.
Hello and welcome to Snacky Tunes. I am one half your host, Greg Bresnitz. We are joined today by James Gardner of the Gitano fame during our continuing coverage of the coronavirus pandemic. James, welcome to Snacky Tunes.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, first and foremost, how are you?
Good. We're good. I mean, we've had 10 weeks quarantined in paradise on the beach in Tulum. So we're very grateful. We're very blessed. We were considering coming back to New York as this was all kind of breaking out in the early days when no one quite knew what to do. And we're glad we stayed here. But we're good and kind of excited to get places open and get working again.
So for a bit of context, let's go back. So you're obviously from London, but you came to the States in 1994 and you started off your career as a financial trader. Is that correct?
I wasn't a trader. I was a technology strategist where I was building technology systems and strategies for Goldman Sachs to start with. It was at a time when we were on the kind of innovation of automated trading and algorithmic trading. So it was a pretty exciting time to be on Wall Street.
But that wasn't your only interest in the city. You were a trader by day and living it up at night. What were some of your haunts during that time, and where would you like to go out, go dancing, and go eating?
Oh my goodness, it seems like a lifetime ago. But so it was the mid to late 90s, and I lived initially in Battery Park City with Goldman Sachs. They moved me there, and there wasn't really anywhere in Battery Park City that I loved to go. But as I explored and grew and learned the city, I discovered the West Village and do you remember Florent in the West Village?
Yes, of course.
Was very fun. And then over in the East Village, we actually moved over to the East Village. We were living above Little Frankie's, so that was also a favorite. So East Village, West Village were definitely kind of where we spent most of our time.
And where would you go out dancing?
Dancing, there was this little place, I'm sure it doesn't exist anymore, called Flamingo East on 14th Street. Do you remember that at all?
That I don't.
Gant Johnson. And it was very fun. It was little, and there was one time we were there, and there was a fashion party there, and I knew nothing about fashion, but there was this girl I met, an English girl, and long story short, made great friends with her, and she introduced me to a lot of people in the fashion world, which I then discovered and became a part of, and it was very fun. So Flamingo East, but also at that time there were places like the Tunnel and the Sound Factory, lots of fun places in that time.
Incredible. So moving forward, and I know that you said you got into the fashion industry, but going on to that, what got you into the hospitality industry, and what kind of drew you in after, working in finance where there's, tons of money and a great lifestyle, and then being like, you know what, I want to go to an industry that has razor thin margins and is a huge gamble and a ton of headaches. What made you make that pivot?
So there was certainly no one point where I was on Wall Street and woke up and said, hey, let's go into hospitality. In fact, I think I used to have a very different point of view of the industry back then. My longtime partner, Andrew, was working at Boulé while I was on Wall Street, so the number one restaurant in New York City, Michelin starred. And I'm like, what? And he'd come home crying, because it's like a military. And I'm like, why? You don't need to work. He was also a model and artist. And he, and I have so much respect for him now. The answer to your question, is really the universe and the overall path and journey I've had led me to this point where I see it as an industry that's very exciting, even in the context of what we're all going through right now. And I've been very grateful to be able to build businesses a little bit differently outside of New York, but also in New York where margins haven't been razor thin and so forth. So we have been successful. But to get from Wall Street to where I am now, bringing many of the skills I learned on Wall Street and then having built a fashion tech company, kind of bringing them and applying those skills to this industry now is very interesting. And again, before this pandemic, I really felt and I still feel that restaurants are very kind of interesting. Restaurants and bars are very interesting epicenter of the culture that we all live in. Back in 10 years ago, when I was building a fashion tech company, it was all about fashion brands and fashion shows and big names and brands and aspiring. I think that changed, and people have a different perspective, different inspiration. Everyone's a brand. Everyone wants to see and be seen. And a restaurant, and our restaurant, Gitano, kind of gives them a stage to do that on. So it wasn't something I woke up and said, let me go from Wall Street to a restaurant. I mean, that logically doesn't even sound like it makes any sense as you framed up your question. But from an overall journey and the universe, I believe strongly that the universe steers us in our lives. And as we let the universe steer us, beautiful things happen. So my answer to that, in short, would be the universe and the journey that I've had.
Amazing. So your first spot opened up in Tulum in 2013. We over the last years have heard of Tulum and the white beaches and its extravagantness. But is that what you found when you went down there 7 years ago, or what was the scene when you were considering opening your first spot?
So Tulum has been a long time love of myself and Andrew, my other half. We've been coming here as tourists since a couple years after we moved to New York. Our fashion friends knew about it before other people did. They would do shoots down here, so they kind of were the first to bring us here, and we discovered it, I guess, many years ago, more than, probably more like 15 plus years ago. And it was in many ways very different, but also at the same time today, it's still the same beautiful place of magical energy that's both light and in some elements dark, and that the connection of the two. The white sand beaches, obviously, are what everyone knows and dreams of. So we would come here from New York frequently. And while we were here really doing nothing, I mean, that was the beauty of the place. We would often wish that there was just a place to get dressed up and go for dinner. And we would therefore kind of split our trips between Tulum, maybe once a year or once every couple of years, but then St. Bart's and Florianopolis and Rio in Brazil, and then Mykonos and Ibiza in the summer. So anytime we were at any of these other places, we would think of Tulum and just wish that Tulum had, a place to get dressed up and go for dinner. And we wouldn't need to go anywhere else. It's the easiest flight. And it's the most beautiful location. It just didn't have anywhere great to eat and have some fun. So we kind of came along, again, the universe kind of brought us this opportunity, I guess, to fill a gap in the market as we saw it. And I think it was a big change that happened here. Started by Heartwood, I would say, was the first, real food-focused, restaurant. And then we were the next shortly after that. And I think together, Heartwood, ourselves, and some other great chefs and entrepreneurs have really built an incredible food and beverage scene in Tulum.
You mentioned that you brought some of your skills from working in the financial industry over to the restaurant industry. I'm curious about what in those early days you brought over that helped you excel and turn Gitano into what we know today.
So I'd say the core, I think about this a lot, having now worked in several industries. I think I've had 3 chapters. So sort of chapter 1 was almost 10 years on Wall Street. Chapter 2 was my digital tech company that I built from the ground up to almost 400 people. And then now the hospitality chapter. And I think the common thread between all of them is sort of strategy, positioning, skill set that I've had going into Wall Street. Kind of what can we do? How can we do things differently? How can we do things more efficiently? What can we automate? I took that to the fashion tech sector, and then in many ways bringing it here. Now, technology has not really played a big part in our roadmap to date, from late 2013, 2014 until now. Of course, I've made sure that we're on the forefront of digital communication, with our site and other elements with reservation systems and other elements like that. But in terms of having really done anything that pushes things into a new territory for restaurants. I mean, almost becomes disruptive. I'd say that skill set, that technology as a disruptor that I've used on Wall Street and my previous company, now I'm excited to see an opportunity to kind of bring those skills to this industry. I'm working over the last weeks on a number of different components that quite significantly will change the guest experience, the staffing, and I think take it to a new level that will be very interesting, where there is less interaction, less friction, less trouble, more efficiency in the process, from arriving, no longer standing in line automatically with a QR code, getting on a wait list, a number of other things like that, all the way through to ordering online, paying online, etc. So bringing some of those technology disruptor skills to the restaurant business is actually exciting me right now. But overall, I would say the common thread has been strategy, positioning. Coming into Tulum at the end of 2013, seeing that there was an opportunity for kind of a mezcal bar-focused restaurant initially. Heartwood was the first restaurant. We positioned ourselves as the first bar, actually, back in 2013, and that worked well. So we were kind of flagged together as the two main places that you had to go to. So I would say strategic positioning would be the common thread.
And for people who don't know and maybe only see the photos, they don't know that like power is an issue there. A lot of things are run off generators. Creativity always comes out of constraints. So what is one of the biggest hurdles that you had to overcome in the early days of Gitano that you were not prepared for, given this situation that you were located in?
So, I think it's interesting. Had I come here, the journey into hospitality and coming first to Tulum and then much later to New York, I think was very interesting. Experienced hospitality people in New York coming here and building a restaurant, and everyone would probably find it incredibly difficult because I was, in some ways naive. Naivety is a beautiful way, like being able to keep a naive mind and ask no question is a stupid question is a great way to learn quickly, and having that beginner's mind in all that we do is actually quite powerful. So many of the things that you would have expected to be in place and come naturally if you owned restaurants in other places, we didn't have any of that. So I probably had a little less frustration than I would if I'd had, much experience building and operating. The experience I now have, actually, building and operating restaurants in New York, coming back to Tulum the other way around, I think would have been very frustrating. Everything was frustrating. I mean, getting anything done in the early years before we had the infrastructure and the connections and the team and the scale and so forth, just every single effort and task was challenging in the jungle. The biggest challenge and the thing that we've always been very focused on since day one is knowing that we're in the jungle, we're in a fragile environment, and everything we do, doing it in a way that respects the nature, respects the environment, and builds within the nature and environment, not against it. So that balance between nature and building the business has also been a problem. There was no infrastructure. I think that Tulum has changed a lot. We're about to get grid electricity, city water. I mean, lots of changes are happening on the beach, but we've definitely been the Wild West and the jungle for many years, which actually that experience of building something from nothing in the jungle was what enabled us to turn a 24,000 square foot empty parking lot in New York City with no water or electricity into a full-service 450-seat restaurant. So we've definitely learned a lot in the jungle, and we've been able to apply some of that back to some other projects.
We're going to take a quick musical break, play a song from our archives, and then we'll be back with James from Gitano here on Snacky Tunes on Heritage Radio Network. One of the things that I really appreciate about your approach and response as a restaurateur during the coronavirus is you look like you're just taking ownership of the situation, and you are approaching it as a creative challenge, if you will. There's about 6 points that you present, and I want to make sure that we touch on all of them. But I think the common thread to all of this is that you see this as something to overcome and react to. How have you been inspired by the current situation and seen it as an opportunity?
I mean, I think you said earlier in this chat is when there are challenges and problems and difficulties, you can either sit and worry and be concerned about how do we get through this, or you can take it as an opportunity to step back and be really creative. I love being creative, and I think this is an incredible opportunity for all of us to kind of reset in life and look at we've all been running like 1,000 miles an hour, feeling like we're super efficient and superpowers, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. Having 10 weeks breathing and exercising and reading and cooking here on the beach in Tulum has given incredible opportunity, and the mind space needed meditating. We meditate every day to be able to breathe and think and feel, what does all this mean? What am I going to feel like when I get back into a restaurant? What's going to make me feel better? And is there an opportunity not only to address the concerns that many people, some people, we don't know yet, will have, but also how can we change things in a positive way to be more efficient and change the overall experience in a way that some things that would have been perhaps not acceptable a few months ago in an elevated dining experience can actually now be seen as something that people want and can change positively the overall guest experience. So I'm very driven and motivated by doing things differently, and I've seen this pandemic give us all an opportunity to think differently and do things differently. And I find that exciting.
Let's start with the obvious one, which you say own the look. Many people have discussed that servers are now going to be wearing gloves. They're going to be wearing masks or face shields, and it's going to feel very impersonal. You have taken it to become a design moment. So can you tell us a little bit about what you feel the future uniforms are going to look like for your employees?
So everything we do, the core concept of Gitano means gypsy, obviously, traveling, wandering. So everything we do, we try to take our guests to someplace else to create a transportive experience. Particularly in New York, where you're surrounded by towers and you're in palm trees, you're transported to Tulum without taking a flight. So, clearly masks are going to be needed and other elements, rather than have guests walk in and feel like they're in a weird hospital or we're kind of owning it and making it fun. So gloves, by the way, I think there's mixed reviews on if gloves are helpful or not. I don't know if we're going to have gloves, but we're custom designing some masks. And I can't announce with who just yet, but we're making some fun masks for the front of house, for the bar, and then more clinical for the back of house and kitchen team. We've developed a visor concept, which is very fun, rainbow tropical visor. I mean, it's almost going to be kind of, we're transporting you to Mars, a tropical oasis on Mars. I mean, we're going to have fun with the uniform, so it feels like part of the overall experience, as opposed to a kind of a jarring medical thing that you have to do.
The next thing, I think, that is the guests themselves, right? Part of what I believe we all miss is going to a place, feeling the vibe, being in a crowd. When I've been out in Tulum, it's just like you walk in and it's instantly crowded. You could feel the energy. Everyone's packed on the dance floor. That's just not going to be the case. So what are your approaches to, as you're calling it, tropical distancing, where you can still maintain the vibe, but make sure that everyone feels safe and secure?
Well, yes, it's, obviously we're having a bit of fun with the tropical distancing concept. We're incredibly grateful to have large, expansive outdoor spaces in all locations in Tulum, New York, and actually, Miami's indoor space is smaller, but also has outdoor roof and terraces. So New York in particular, 24,000 square feet, we've designed it to house 400 people seated for dinner. So even at 25% capacity, we've designed a layout with tables like at least 6 to 8 feet apart. And the way the space is designed, we've always thought of our restaurants as kind of a theater, as a stage where the guests are on stage, as a place to see and be seen and connect. There's another version of that, but so we still feel that can happen, but from a distance. So it's still a place to see and be seen, but from a distance. So we have room enough to spread people out, to have kind of plants behind and between tables, so it almost feels like your own private tropical garden, but with enough space to still see what's going on and who's going on. So yes, it will be a very different, but still chic, beautiful, and fun vibe and environment to start with. I mean, I don't think anyone wants to be in situations where they're in crowded spaces just yet. I mean, at least I don't think so.
It's going to be such an interesting challenge because so much of that vibe is seeing friends, running into them, getting up, going and chat at another table, and you have to resist it. You have to also, even if you want to go see a friend, you might walk by a few other tables. How are you going to approach it? Or at the very least, what are your thoughts on being able to tamp down a bit on the social commingling that naturally happens in a restaurant?
Oh my God, you've just given me a new idea. Live here. Maybe we'll implement. So I'm working on a lot of technology solutions, as I said, that if you want to talk about, I'd love to talk about. But
yes.
Maybe there's a way that we can have some instant messaging connected table to table. So you see someone over at the table that usually you get up and walk over and go and chat at the table, but now you'll know what table number they're on, and you can message them live and chat remotely. I mean, how fun is that? I just had that idea live with you on this chat. You're going to see it in the Garden of Love in a few weeks.
Incredible.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think people generally, it's hard to tell. America's opening right now, and some places you're seeing crazy packed pool parties. Other places people are taking it more seriously. I think, our core audience skew younger, 20s, 30s, a group that are less impacted. And, New Yorkers are resilient. However, I do believe our audience will be mindful because it's not just about them and their vulnerability, but them kind of potentially harming others also, So I do think people will be respectful and coming up with ways that people can have fun, an environment that they feel safe and they're enjoying and can see other people and connect with other people. I mean, that's what we're really thinking about. And I think we've developed some smart approaches that will allow that to happen.
So let's touch on the technology as you mentioned it beforehand. I see a lot of it about ordering in advance, arrivals, etc. But how are you weaving this into the hospitality side of things? I think it's very easy to go automated and lose the soul. How are those two woven together?
I mean, I think that's a key part, and we're doing it with, working through each of the steps of service, arrival and service and hospitality with our team. And actually, I go further and say, I think it will give us more room to focus on the pure hospitality, which is really almost like entertaining and, rather than the nuts and bolts of service, getting from A to B, getting this order into this system and getting that dish to that table, all of that piece and that process gets automated, allowing the staff to spend more time on the relationship, entertainment, kind of hospitality side of the experience. So I actually think it's additive to the experience and won't take away at all. I think it will make things more efficient. I mean, hospitality is about enjoying an experience, giving guests an experience that they enjoy. If you're waiting 15, 20 minutes to flag down a waiter because it's so busy and the place is so huge to get a drink or to get your check, I mean, that's not too enjoyable. So systems we're putting in place, I think, will speed up that overall flow and process and take that stress away, because that can be stressful, no? If you're with a group and you can't see a waiter and, so I think the things that we're doing will actually make the overall experience even more enjoyable. So I think it will be a new level of hospitality, not taking away from the hospitality.
I'm curious about your thoughts on guest arrival and guest exiting. I think that's one of the issues that I personally can't wrap my head around, because all of it makes sense when people are there, they're spaced out, but it's like this or going to a play or a concert or the theater where you have these funnels, these entry and exit points. What are you considering about social distancing arrivals and exiting for the guests to make sure that each step of the process is as safe as possible?
Well, I think it's a very good question, and for us in particular, where the last 2 seasons in New York, we've been very popular and kind of had lines around the block at certain periods. So we're actually implementing a system with a couple of different technology tools and integrating them all the way through, where there won't be lines, but there's a QR code to scan a wait list. You join the wait list digitally and then go and wait somewhere else for 10 whatever minutes, and you're messaged when there's space for you to come in. So we actually don't really have lines at all, but we have virtual waiting lists, digital waiting lists, and remote kind of connection and automation. So that's one thing if you just turn up without a reservation, which we obviously get a lot of those. The other is when you reserve, all reservations are made online. We're working on a system that will send you a QR code with your reservation. So when you walk in, there'll be a security guard who scans the QR code, sees your reservation, and kind of allows you to walk in. So it's kind of making the biggest bottlenecks of people coming to the door in the first place to say they have a reservation or they want to get onto a waiting list. And then once you're in with the host to find your table. I mean, our problems are perhaps a little different than many restaurants because of the scale. But this is definitely a very important point that we're thinking about. And I think we're putting some smart systems and processes in place to help with that. Obviously, there'll be markings on the ground when there are lines to have people spaced out, 6 feet at least. I mean, there'll be some basic kind of, perhaps ropes. I mean, even when we have had lines, we have some Tulum style ropes that we've used to fence off and kind of direct people where to stand. Because if you have lines, even before this pandemic, we have to be very careful of our neighbors and making sure that we're managing crowds properly. So that was something we kind of got adept at before. Now this takes that challenge to a new level. So challenge number 1 is to actually reduce the number of people who stand in line, and then number 2, where there are people, have them spaced out 6 feet.
This being Snacky Tunes, we always love the way that restaurants and food businesses use music as an audio signature and as a way to signify what they're into, almost like a sound aesthetic, if you will. You have zeroed in on a concept called gypsy disco and are developing a new sound identity for this time. How did you develop this? What can we expect on the playlist? And how does this help enliven the guest experience?
So back to our name, Gitano. It's very powerful. Gitano means gypsy, and I've always loved disco, the feeling of disco, not necessarily or only Donna Summer at Studio 54 back in those days, but the disco represents this happiness, this lightness, this fun. And back in 2013, 2014, we were really the first to bring this approach to music to Tulum. Tulum then was very, I call it Tulum techno, but just had a very kind of one-track approach to music that was becoming known for, and we wanted to do something different. And I was very excited about. I'm always excited by juxtapositions, and the particular juxtaposition here that worked very well in my mind and has been a big success for us and a very unique sound positioning and sound identity is sort of the gypsy, which is world, which is diverse, which is eclectic, which is multi-language, multicultural, mixed with that feeling of disco, actual disco, back to, Donna Summer and Diana Ross, to new disco and classic house and, even some other electronic music that all together makes an incredible kind of transportive feeling and approach. So I think that people now more than ever want to be taken away and out of the news cycles and out of CNN and out of the New York Times for a minute, as great as they all are, but to be transported to another place, and be that by tropical plants and other elements. But probably the single biggest thing that really transports is this music that you can never tell. Is that new? Is that old? Where's that from? What country is that? What language is that? But all those questions you're asking in the meantime, like, totally whisk you up and take you off to another place and potentially another planet. I mean, we're thinking about a tropical disco on Mars. So, yeah.
Incredible. Well, James, thank you so much for making time for us. Where can people find you, follow you, track the opening dates, get all the information?
So we're at grupo.gitano, and that's GRUPO.gitano. And I'm James.Gardner, JamesGardner. And both mine will be a bit more of a personal feed and insight into what's going on a bit more behind the scenes, and then the official kind of voice of what we're doing is through Grupo Gitano.
Incredible. Well, thank you for joining us. We're going to take another musical break, play a song from the archives, and then we'll be back with the second half of Snacky Tunes here on Heritage Radio Network.
Greg, thank you for having me so much. That was fun.
This episode is brought to you by Square. You might know Square from their little white card readers, but Square has a lot more tools that can help businesses, especially now that they're having to figure out how to safely reopen and make things work in this new normal. So many are stepping up to the challenge, like Fifth Hammer Brewing in Long Island City. To adapt, Fifth Hammer's co-owner Mary Izette created a Square online store so customers could browse available beers, build an order, and safely pick up cans from the tap room.
I was able to set up our online store within 24 hours of moving to a to-go model.
The Square online store allowed Fifth Hammer to keep beer production going, serve their local customers, and retain employees.
It's also very easy to train your staff on. They will be able to receive, fulfill, and provide your customers with a contactless pickup in no time.
If you're a business owner, Square wants you to know it has tools that can help you shift your business, like Fifth Hammer is doing. No matter if you're brewing beer, baking bread, or mixing to-go cocktails, you can start taking online orders in minutes with pickup and delivery. And if you're selling in person, Square can help you accept contactless payments. All these tools work together and they're all in one place. You just need a Square account to get started. See all the ways Square can help your business right now by visiting square.com/go/snacky.
Hello and welcome to Snacky Tunes. I am one half your host, Greg Bresnitz. We have Leo Linansky and Marcos Porras joining us from Switzerland and Mexico. Welcome to Snacky Tunes.
Hello.
Hi, Greg. Hi. So we just had a great conversation with James from Gitano, but Leo, you are the music director for Gitano, and Marcos, you are part of the house band trio Håbe. It's great to connect with you guys. First and foremost, as we ask everyone during this time, how are you two doing?
I am great. I'm I'm doing fine sitting here in Switzerland. Summer is coming along, so it's a good time to be here in Europe. How are you doing?
Me, Philadelphia, summer here, not too hot. Good. Marcos, how's Tulum?
Well, we have just like 2 seasons here in Tulum. We have summer and hell. So now we are in hell. But beside that, I have air conditioning on my studio, so it's a good time to produce and to design new projects and stuff. So I'm doing great.
For those of the uninitiated, can you give some characteristics of hell?
Hell.
What makes it so?
First, like 1,000,000 degrees, very humid, and 1,000 mosquitoes by square meter. It's like, hell. There's no other way to describe it. Yep.
Marcos, I want to start with you. You started your musical career when you were 17, and then started playing 19 professionally. What were some of the early instruments that you picked up, and what were some of the sounds that defined your youth?
Okay. I started singing when I was like 9 for school projects and stuff. And then when I was like 15, we wanted to like start, a rock band that was popular at that time. And I was the lead singer, but it turns like I wasn't that good singing. So I started with the bass because I wanted to belong to a band and do music and stuff. I was a rugby player, and I injured my my leg, and I had a lot of free time, like just like high school and rugby for me at that time. And when I injured my leg, I started with music, with bass, and that's why that was it. Yeah.
And being from Argentina, what were some of the rock bands that you were into at that time that were influencing your decision to join a group?
Okay, that's a good question. Do you know anything about Argentinian music? It's like we have like a complete different scene in Argentina. That it's a big scene. Maybe Leo knows about Soda Stereo, which is an
Of
Argentinian
course.
band, of course.
Of course.
Okay. Well, like Soda Stereo is like a pop rock band, a very big band, and we have like plenty of
All over Latin
bands.
America, no?
Um,
They're famous all over Latin America, no?
yeah, they are. Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed. But Argentinians are very like rock and music fans. The concerts there, I like go to the church. It's like, okay, let's do this. It's like something very spiritual for us. So, and not just for rock bands, but like folkloric bands, and like popular music, like cuarteto, which is a mixture between tarantela, which is like an Italian rhythm, and paso doble, which is like from countryside in Argentina. Well, cuarteto borns, and a lot of people, like 5,000 people at least, goes to cuarteto dancing places with live music from Wednesday to Sunday, always in Córdoba, always. Like it's a very like particular phenomenon there. So I think that we don't choose the music that we are influenced by. I mean, we can be influenced by music in a good way or in a positive way or in a negative way, but we are not choosing the music. We're just like exposed to the music. So all that culture makes me the musician that I am right now.
And Leo, how did you get your start in music? Did you DJ? Did you play in a band? Was it always from the programming side? Where did your passion begin?
It actually started in Berlin a few years ago because I was working in nightlife in some bars and clubs. I was in my very early 20s and started DJing. I mean, the whole thing started probably earlier when I was a teenager. I used to make CDs, like do compilations of music and burn CDs for my friends and stuff like that. But really getting into it in a deeper way was in nightlife there, because in Berlin, I was working in this bar, which was a wild place, a really wild place called King Size. And I started DJing there sometimes. By the same time, I played guitar a lot and started recording music as well. So the whole thing, yeah, I took my way from there and started producing. I was DJing on the side. I just had a feeling for the music that I really liked it. I enjoyed it, making music and playing music. So I don't know. I guess it's just started there at some point and got into my way of music direction came years later. Yeah.
How did you both make your way or find yourself in Tulum?
I went there in 2011 for the first time. I worked in a project in 2012 where I met a lot of people, and somehow I went back to Mexico over and over. I used to live in Europe still by then, but I came back to Mexico all the time. And yeah, I made a lot of friends there, worked there frequently, and I had a good time. I really liked it, even though Tulum changed a lot. So yeah, I guess I started like that, 2011, 2012.
And Marcos?
I came here at 2017 because I got a lot of friends here, and they were like, hey man, you need to go to Tulum because it's so good. You need to go and do music over there and stuff. So I was like finishing some project in Argentina, and I decided to come here, and here I am. because I really like the place.
Incredible. And when you both arrived there, how would you describe the music scene? You know, what was the sound of Tulum? Is there a sound of Tulum, and who were some of the groups and players?
There definitely is a sound of Tulum. Back in the days, it was very down tempo. For example, this organic down tempo music was a huge thing in Tulum. I actually saw a lot of people rising through Tulum into the worldwide scene of music through this kind of music. The whole down tempo, Oriental, Latin American mix and everything. It has its own special tune for sure, in my opinion.
And Marcos, from the live music scene, which is not always analogous to the DJ scene, what type of music and sounds did you hear there?
If I have to pick one word to describe Tulum and what Tulum means to me in music, it's diversity. Because here I found like a lot of musicians from very different genres. I have been playing with Balkan bands. I have been playing with flamenco bands, rock bands, funk, soul, R&B bands, jazz bands, bossa nova bands. So diverse. It's like a lot of musicians and a lot of different musics and different moods here. I think that's the beauty thing of Tulum, right? Like the diversity.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have to say as well, when we talk about that, through the years, it went through a change. For example, with the whole down tempo, how it started back in the days, when I went there, not in general, just when I went there in 2011, 2012, that was a big thing coming up. But as Marcos says, I feel like nowadays there is a huge diversity. I totally agree on that. For example, Gitano has a huge disco thing as well. It's really known for disco and house music.
Incredible. Well, why don't we hear a song from Håbe? Marcos, what song are you guys going to play for us first?
The first song, it's the homonymous. It's Håbe.
Amazing. Well, here we go with Håbe live on Snacky Tunes on Heritage Radio Network. Leo, you mentioned that Gitano is known for house and disco. How would you describe the audio signature for the place and how it's evolved into what you know today?
You mean the process? What happened in the last years?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned before, in my opinion, when I came to Tulum for the first time, Tulum was very had a strong scene with this down tempo, deep house music. Gitano, on the other hand, there is such music. Of course, we book stuff like that as well as part of my job. But we are very known as well for the whole disco and house elements. The Friday night we have it's a huge night every week in low season, in high season, and we book a lot of people that play a lot of Afro. It's Afro music from Afro house, disco tunes. It's very eclectic, the whole mix, which makes it for me very interesting to work there as well and book people, because you have a huge there's a diversity in the genres. That's something I really enjoy.
Marcos, Håbe formed earlier this year, and you're a trio. How did you come together and put together a group and decide on the sound that you're going to play?
Okay, that's a good question. Well, first I met Fede because I'm from Mendoza. My family is from Mendoza, but I lived in Córdoba from since I was 4. So I'm more Cordobés than Mendocino. And okay, I met Fede in Córdoba, and we met again here in Tulum. And I know that Fede likes the same music because he had a Syrian ancestors. So we started the band with Santi, which is another guy, another friend that right now is in Argentina. And we know that Santi can't do it anymore, so we started to make music with Rocco, that is from Serbia, and he's a very good producer, very good sound engineer. So we all met and we started to play together, and it works, and it was amazing. We have a very enjoyable time, and I think that's all about music, right? About connection, chemistry, and when that it's working, everything else is going to work.
Exactly. And how does do you just play Gitano, or do you travel around and play? How easy is it for bands to play all over the area, or do bands tend to stick to one or two places?
Well, I can say that we're traveling because the band have been formed this year. So, and this year is kind of difficult to travel.
True.
So, but yeah, we mainly play not in Gitano. We play in Mese, which is an amazing place from Gitano group. It's Greek, Leo, right? It's a Greek place. It's Greek.
Yeah, you could. It's Aegean, the whole area. It has a Greek.
Okay.
The chef is Greek. He's an amazing cook that makes all the Greek food.
Yeah.
It's Aegean. We call it the Aegean Taverna.
Aegean, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we started to play there. And now it's Nomade and other places in that area, which is kind of the best area to play and to make music.
Great. Can we hear another song?
Okay.
What's this one?
Let's hear Malaiko.
One of the coolest things I think about the band is that you guys are attached to Studio Tulum, which is a record label and also studio inside Tulum. Can you tell me a little bit about the history of the label and how it came to be?
Well, I can tell you a little bit because the Studio Tulum, it's an entrepreneurship from Rocos. Studio Tulum, it's a recording studio. It's a very cool recording studio. Rocco, it's an amazing engineer, amazing music producer, and he had produced like a lot of projects here in Tulum, like Samapash, that it's like a flamenco fusion band, and he had produced Camille Gomez Baez, which is a French singer, an amazing French singer. That makes like R&B, soul, neo soul, and many other projects that don't came to my mind right now because, as I told you, I'm not the head of Studio Tulum. I'm just attached because of the band. But it's an amazing studio. Rocco have amazing equipment and amazing ideas. That's the cool thing about Rocco, and he really knows the music industry. He really knows how to promote and how to develop, how to develop like projects, how to do it, how to like improve and increase your performance as a musician. Rocco, it's really good.
And I know that we're all taking a pause this year on live events. Leo, you were telling me that you cannot throw any parties yet. And for those of people who don't know, in Tulum, certain places have kind of claimed nights of the week. What are you thinking in ways to still bring the Tulum sound and continue to push diversity as we all wait this out together?
Sorry, again, I didn't hear it proper. It was...
What are you planning to do to kind of continue to push out the Gitano music to the Tulum community as we all wait this out together?
Yeah, I changed my focus lately while we were closed because of the whole COVID situation. I changed my focus a little bit to the SoundCloud page as well. I asked a lot of people like DJs, artists to record some sets that I can upload on the SoundCloud page, which works really well. And we made posts with that, which was a successful project. Yeah, it was good to do this because like this, you keep DJs busy basically, or artists in general, and you give them a chance to record something and send it to you, and you can upload it and just spread it through Instagram, for example, and people can still click on the things. They were able to listen it at home or even play on little private parties, which apparently happen a lot all over the planet. So yeah, that was one of the ways that we used to still keep on maintaining the whole music business with Gitano.
And Marcos, as a musician, how are you keeping yourself creatively engaged during this time?
Trying to go to the private parties.
Touche. Touche.
No, like we keep producing music, because like that's like not a thing like that is attached to like work, like to make profit. It's like more, it's a need, we need to produce some music. Actually we are like making a Tulum album with a lot of artists, different artists that make original music here, and like we are setting up all the marketing strategy and all that stuff. Like we are producing, we are doing music, and that's the interest thing about this COVID situation. That is how not just the music scene, but the music mindset. It needs to turn, because it's very different how it's right now and how it was like 4 or 5 months ago.
I totally agree. I see it around me as well. There's what you're saying reminds me too. I feel like there's a lot of artists out there that get very productive and very creative, and they use the chance that they have a lot of free time, go to the studios and record. And there's other people that really struggle and they lose their creativity. It's really interesting how this whole situation changes the brains sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah. Well, we want to make sure we have time for one more song. But where can people find you, follow you, hear your music, hear the DJ sets?
Sorry, mine or Gitanos?
Both.
Okay.
Marcos, say it.
You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram as Håbe Music. And we have a SoundCloud spot that it's Håbe too.
Yeah, and the whole Gitano thing you can find, well, there's a lot of links as well in Instagram that we made the posts for the artists when we recorded the sets, but also on SoundCloud, for example, you can just enter Gitano sound, like Gitano_sound, and you find most of the sets there, which were recorded and uploaded.
Amazing. Marcos, what is the name of the last song you guys are going to play for us today?
Okay, this is a very particular name, which like writes in a very particular time. It's Sultan Returns, No One Bend the Knee.
Great name.
Amazing name. Thank you to the whole Gitano crew. We wish you the best of luck in the reopening of all of your spaces. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Snacky Tunes. We'll be back next week. See you then.
We talk about food, we talk about music with musical dudes. Finger on the pulse, snacky tunes.
This program is powered by Simplecast.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content and to hear about exclusive events, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at heritage_radio. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be a part of the food world's most innovative community? Rate the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join our community by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.